Expert here with Mark Johnston, our international marriage expert. We are marriage experts and coaches, and we come to you live every Thursday with going deep into a marriage topic that you guys are interested in here in the Thriving Marriage to really help move you guys forward. And I feel like my head is like huge. Like I am like way bigger than you, Mark. There we go. If I sit back.
Maybe I just need to lean forward.
You're like such a giantess. Whatever. So I don't know about you guys, but this has been a whirlwind of a day. I don't know how many of you guys are parents with your kids going back to school, but I just have to give a shout out to myself because I just came off of the open house with 7 of my kids and all of their backpacks overfilled with all these school supplies, carrying heavy reams of paper, and like going through the halls with my toddler and my baby and trying to manage all of it. So
you guys are starting already. We're in a more traditional. We're not starting until after Labor Day here, so we still have like another month.
I feel like the schools are starting earlier and earlier, and like the summers are so short. So it's really weird because we're just in a normal public school here. And anyway, so I was just trying to take a minute to breathe and really make sure that I'm focused and centered as I, do this here with Mark today, to really be present and to serve you guys the best. And the thought came to me as I was doing that like, so many times we get caught up in this busyness and we don't take that moment to breathe and really think about what am I wanting to accomplish here. So just a really quick mindset check-in. If you feel like you're rushing around and if things are kind of chaotic in your life, in your relationship, to make sure you take that step back and center yourself and take that high level overview of what do you really want to accomplish so that you can then step into the next activity with that presence and that intentionalism. So has nothing to do with our topic today, except it was on my mind. So, all right. So Mark, today we're talking about hostility to healing. Mm-hmm. And we've had this theme of save your marriage on your own and recoupling, which means bringing you back together after there's been some disconnect. And usually what we help people with specifically is when one spouse is pulling away from the marriage. So we've given you guys what we call our restoration equation, which is going through the process of what needs to happen to reconnect with your spouse the right way. And now this week specifically, and last week, we've been talking about some of the obstacles or roadblocks that come up when you're wanting to reconnect with your spouse. Thanks for the comments and thanks for the thumbs up. Appreciate that. If you guys have a specific question that you want us to address here live, go ahead and leave it in the comments. And if there's time, we would love to get to it. So last week we talked about stonewalling, and Mark gave incredible value and absolute gold on what to do if your spouse is kind of shutting you out. Today, we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum because sometimes it's not so much stonewalling or shutting out that is being experienced, but there's actually some hostility. So Mark, what does this usually look like? And then what are the most common mistakes that people make when they're faced with kind of this hostility from their spouse?
I'll tell you, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. Things like this, arguments, they tend to escalate. They tend to get really out of hand. There's hostility, and there's a specific moment when it happens. So I want you to listen to it because you can tell when things have gone turn for the worse as soon as this happens. And that's as soon as the problem that is being discussed becomes about the person rather than the situation. As an example. So let's say that, some sort of financial issue comes up. You're talking about your budget. You're talking about what's the money that's in the bank. And all of a sudden, one person or the other starts complaining about how their spouse has been spending too much and they shouldn't be doing that. And how could they put them in this sort of situation? It's that everything is going to be fine up until that point when it becomes something personal. And it's only, unless people are really prepared, really equipped with some good skills, I can almost guarantee that at that moment, something's going to happen. Someone's going to shut down, or it's going to escalate. Things are going to blow up. It just kind of depends on what your normal pattern is for conflict. But that is what we're looking at. And this is how hostility just continues to build is as problems become as they become personal rather than about the problem itself.
Awesome. And so what would be some of the mistakes that you see people make when, exactly what you said, it becomes about the person rather than the situation?
So that's a good question. So, I almost invariably, almost every single time, what I see happen is as soon as it becomes personal, the person who's being attacked then, like I was saying before, they either shut down, they attack back, or they get defensive. So any direction that you go in here, whether that's going back on the offensive yourself or retreating into yourself or anything that isn't taking some time to understand the situation and understand the frustration that's going on, is probably going to just put fuel into the fire here.
That's exactly it. I was wondering when you were going to say that. That's the exact phrase. Okay, we're going to drop two really awesome phrases here, and I'm going to put that right there. But the fuel, okay, fire with fire. We talk about this, and Mark and I we've taught this from the beginning. But there's two kind of phrases that we use here. First, we talk about stop the damage. That is one of the first steps that has to happen when you're reconnecting with your spouse. And it's one of the things that we coach in our relationship reboot course, and also to the clients that work with us individually, that the damage must be stopped first. When we're talking about this hostility, that's the kind of damage that we're talking about today. And you can't fight fire with fire, right? What happens when you fight fire with fire, Mark?
It's just going to grow. It's just going to be one big fiery mess.
Exactly. There's a lot of fires here in Colorado and California right now. And so much so that the smoke's been actually coming like into our home, even though they're miles from us. But could you imagine if the firefighters went and they like started blasting it with a bunch of torches or throwing lighter fluid onto it? However, that's exactly what so many of us tend to do. You mentioned there are a couple other things though. The reclusing, the closing up, stonewalling, all of those different things. So those would all be the kind of mistakes to avoid when you are dealing with a hostile situation in your marriage. So we don't want to fight fire with fire. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that. But the first thing is we must stop the damage so that then the healing can occur. We're talking about from hostility to healing. That's a pretty big journey, and it's not going to happen overnight. But you definitely want to make sure that you're stopping the damage so that then eventually that healing can come about, right? We often equate that also to like a physical injury. If someone's physically stabbed you, you can't allow that wound to heal until the knife is removed. I know that's pretty gory. My boys love that analogy. I have young boys. But really, you have to set healthy boundaries. And oftentimes when you are in that kind of situation where it feels like fire is being fought with fire, or there's a lot of hostility, a lot of, what's the word in my brain?
Tension.
I don't know what it is. Everything's volatile. There's a lot of volatility. Yeah. Is that a word?
Good word.
Hostility, volatility, whatever. But when you're in that situation, people often have no idea how to stop it or where to start, because they've gotten into this situation between them and their spouse. And this has probably been going on a long time. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the years, to the point where they literally do not have the tools. They don't know the steps to take to stop that damage. Right, Mark? So let's give them an actionable step right now. What would be one thing that they could do to move out of this hostility and start stepping towards some healing?
Well, I was giving this a lot of thought today because I wanted to give a good, concise answer. So I was trying to gather ideas from several different sources, trying to think about it, from my own perspective, what I think would be best. In general, what's going to prevent hostility in the first place is if there is just general favorable experiences between you and your spouse. But that's too broad of a topic. you're going to have more resiliency against volatility, against this fire, if the two of you actually have enjoyable experiences together. That's the long-term plan. Short-term, though, we need to, when people are in that really hostile, angry mood, a lot of people are really laser focused on what's making them upset. In the example of the finances, like, oh, my husband, my wife did this to me, and they're very focused. I think one of the quickest ways to break something like this is just to pull their attention elsewhere. I mean, this is kind of like an in the moment, if nothing else works. I mean, in general, I do think that in a broad sense, understanding, taking the time to really hear the other person out and hear those frustrations is good. But if that's just not working, I think that's like the very first line of defense. If that's not working, I do think almost shocking the person in some small way, surprising them in some small way. I'm getting this idea directly from, I remember a story of Tony Robbins. I was listening to some of his stuff, and he was talking about this one couple that he had been talking with. I might even be getting my stories mixed up. I might even not even be Tony Robbins. But he was talking about this one couple where, as soon as like the arguments were starting to pick up, there was a suggestion that, okay, the husband should start like undressing, just as like a way to shock the situation. And the wife, he said, okay, fine, I'll do this. And they went into this situation. They're at a restaurant, and his wife started, getting upset with him. He just started unbuttoning his shirt, and she's like, "What are you doing? Stop that!" And it kind of shocked them out of that situation. They're able to take a moment and actually think about what's going on. What was that?
We call that a pattern interrupt. Something.
Yeah.
That interrupts the pattern. So if there's something you can do that interrupts the pattern and makes you both kind of step back, then you can take a new look at it, a fresh perspective.
Yeah, so like I said, I might be getting the stories all completely mixed up. It might be the person that I was talking about. But exactly what Heather was saying, if there's something that can be done to interrupt the pattern that's going on, that's all the better. So that's why sometimes it is good to show that understanding and have that patience with the person if that's something different than what the pattern has been. If previously, you've been rising to the, just fighting that fire with fire, and instead something funny is inserted into the situation, that's also going to interrupt the pattern. And it's much more likely for both of you to be able to take a step back and think about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This just brings up the marriage advice that we had heard to never go to sleep angry. And I actually disagree with that. I think that sleep is an amazing reset because then you're able to recharge and come at it from a fresh perspective. So that's just my opinion.
I think I might actually disagree with you slightly, as long as you're not just sweeping this under the rug.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, if you're going to bed and saying, hey, we'll just forget about it, we're not going to address this at all, that I think going to bed, with some sort of problem going on would not be the correct course of action. I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
So yes, it's good maybe to interrupt the pattern, but as long as you're going to do something about it at some point in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a really great question here. Before I get to that, so Mark, I don't know if you can see it. I'll post it. I don't know if you can see it in the comments here. It's from Becky.
I can't see comments for some reason.
Okay, well, I'll read it in a second. But I just have a little pop quiz for everyone. So this is the question. Which one is more challenging in reconnecting with your spouse? Is it hostility or is it apathy? So Mark and I will get back to that at the end of the live stream. You guys can weigh in your comments below which one you think is more challenging to overcome. Is it hostility or is it apathy? And there's a very distinct reason why it's one or the other. So go ahead and weigh in, and we'll get back to our little pop quiz at the end to see. It really is, in our opinion. All right, so Becky's question is this. My spouse says he sees no hope and does not want to work on the marriage and just wants to end it. But the problems aren't unsolvable, normal problems. How do I get him to have a conversation about reconnecting when he only gets angry when I try to talk about reconciliation? He left. We are separated by his choice. So the question. Spouse
No,
seems.
yeah, it's basically how do we have a conversation? He's just angry. He doesn't want to reconcile.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Oh my goodness, this is covering like our whole face. So I'm gonna.
No, so this I'm glad this was asked, and the whole reason that there isn't a conversation happening here, why he doesn't want to reconcile, why he won't even have the conversation in the first place, is because he believes that that conversation is in some way going to run contrary to what he wants. At this point, if he's saying, "Hey, I'm done, I'm out, I want a divorce," he's gotten to the point where he says the marriage is become an obstacle to what he wants. And even further, if you're trying to pull him back in to reconcile, your objective right there is directly running against his goals. And so I talk about this all the time about how do you get past resistance. And one of the best ways is to simply find something that he does want and work with that. If your goals are in alignment with his, then and you're providing exactly what he's looking for, and it just so happens to help you out as well, you're probably going to be, it's much more likely to have that conversation that you're looking for. So I wouldn't even start with reconciliation. It's more about what's wanted.
Exactly. Like Mark just mentioned, it has crossed that tipping point. And that tipping point, if you need more reference to what we're talking about there, go back to our live stream from a couple weeks ago on Save Your Marriage on Your Own, part 1 and part 2. And that will help you understand exactly what we're talking about here, and give you some more resources there on what you can do to get going. But these are I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? This is a crucial situation. It's like your marriage is in the ICU, and so you need to handle it with care and make sure that you take the proper steps to get the right care and the right plan going forward, the right system to really save this situation. It's not hopeless, and like you mentioned, it sounds a little frustrating because they're not unsolvable problems, but for whatever reason, he has seen your marriage now as an obstacle to his happiness. And so, like Mark said, knowing what is wanted will be the very first step. Knowing where to take that from there is going to be really important, that you have the right guidance and the right tools to guide you to the reconciliation and the reconnecting aspect. That makes sense? And I know there are a couple other people here that said they're in the same kind of boat. So encourage you to go through those other live streams and then make sure that you're getting the proper help to really solve that. Alrighty. We do have, let's see, only a couple people. Heather, I need a mic. I have a hard time hearing you. Anyone else have a hard time hearing me? I talk loud. Mark, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Oh, no. I don't know if everyone heard that.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll have to get a mic. That's the first time I've ever heard that. So
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Very cool. All righty. So we have one more question here, but I'm not sure we're going to have much time for it. So Mark, do you want to address that one real quick? I don't know if you can see it.
I can't, like I said, I can't see the comments. If you want to put it out and read it out.
She surrounded herself with people that are helping her heal. She has completely isolated herself from people who love her. Any discussion about getting around those people makes her break down, get upset, and then the hostility comes to the forefront. What would be a way to counter this position without dismissing her scars and real pain that is obviously present?
For some reason, there's some sort of disconnect in my mind. Are you able to post it out so I can see it myself?
There we go. Okay. And again, if you guys haven't weighed in, which one is more challenging for a marriage? Is it apathy or is it hostility? Leave a comment which one you guys think it is. And we're going to get to that at the end here in a few minutes.
Okay. Well, here's the thing that I see with this situation. There's a difference in how each person views those people that she surrounded herself with. So she's saying that she surrounded herself with people who are helping her heal, but at the same time, she's saying things like she feels so alone or lost or whatever. This does kind of go back to what I was talking about earlier. And if you were going to make some sort of change, you have to find something that's going to help her get what she's looking for. But even beyond that, this goes to kind of some theories as far as stages of change. If she's not even aware that this is a problem, you actually have to bring some awareness to it in the first place. The theory that I'm talking about. So if someone's not aware that there's a problem, it's called the pre-contemplation stage. And the big objective there to move them along towards more change would be, like I said, bring in awareness. Now you can't simply just say, hey, look, your friends are trash and they're not doing any good for you. You're going to have to go about that carefully. And like I said, knowing what she's looking for and pointing out some of the dissonance between what she's wanting and what she's getting from some of these people is going to be helping there. But yeah, being very direct and telling her, you know what, you need to get rid of your friends isn't going to work. Bringing awareness to how those friends are not serving her on specifically what she was wanting may bring her along towards helping her get to that conclusion on her own.
Very good. And I'm going to share one more. What if you can't get any clarification if she wants to stay in the relationship or move on? So this is a clear indication that if you aren't sure, and she sounds like she's not sure because you're not getting the clarification, that she's on the fence. And okay, so if we were to make a diagnosis about this, even like compare it to like a medical diagnosis, this would mean that there is a huge amount of opportunity for healing here. So instead of like stage 4 cancer, you would be at like stage 2. All right. I was related to cancer. I've been gone through that myself. But it means like you're not like completely dead or not, almost there. But that there is opportunity for you to use whatever is there for her, calling her to stay with you. There is something that's keeping her there. You got to get that tipping point in your favor. And that's exactly what Mark and I coach people on. And that's exactly what we teach in our courses and in our coaching programs. So definitely encourage you, if that's what you're going through, that you get the right help, because there's definitely opportunity there for growth to happen and reconnection to happen. I wouldn't worry. I don't know, Mark, what you think, but I wouldn't worry about so much about clarity about where she's at. I would more use the opportunities present in your favor and use them, like, instead of knowing exactly where are you at, that's like your need for security, most likely. Usually when someone's really wanting to know, where are you at? Are you in? Are you out? Are you gone? Are you staying? That's almost irrelevant, right? You want that for your own security. However, what's more important is what you want and taking advantage of the opportunities that are present to really get you there. And that's exactly what Mark coaches people on how to do.
Yeah, even with that question, I mean, there's so much that we could get into. It all depends on what's really going on. Is this person not being forthcoming because those conversations are uncomfortable? She's getting quiet. Is it because she hasn't thought about it very much? Is it because she's torn between two different decisions? There's a lot of direction that we could go with it with more information, but in general, my suggestion with something like that is take a step back. So if she's not sure what she wants with the relationship, what does she want in general? And you can help process that. So as an example, someone might say, hey, I'm really unhappy because we have lots of fights, but we do have good times and I want to be here for our kids. Torn between two different things, you might say, where are you at? Do you want to stay or go? And that person will say, I don't know. But if you can get down, take a step back from that situation and say, okay, well, what is it that you actually want here? What is keeping you from staying? What's making you want to go? What can we do about those things? I think would be a good direction to go with that.
Yeah, very good. All right, so there's a few more questions. Sorry, guys, we're gonna have to cut it. We have other, clients and coaching that we need to get to, but we do appreciate you guys. So to drum roll for our pop quiz here, it's pretty tight. I was going through the comments that we got here live. About half of you are saying apathy, and half of you are saying, what's the other one? Hostility. So, which is more challenging to overcome when you are wanting to reconnect with your spouse? Is it apathy or is it hostility? Mark, what's the right answer here?
I'm going to say it's apathy. All the
Absolutely.
models of how relationships go, that there's generally a predictable path with, how a couple comes together. If they're going to come apart, they're going to plateau at some point, and then there's certain milestones as they start coming apart. And absolutely, apathy is further along in those models. It's simply because, if you're angry, there's something in there that you still care about.
Mm-hmm.
Apathy, you simply have no care for that situation whatsoever anymore. And therefore, you're not only, if you even get them to the point of caring, they're then going to probably be, you're going to have to work through that hostility again to move, to actually get a little bit more towards that healing end of things. So I would be much more worried about an apathetic situation than a hostile situation. And I would say even there, even, with our own clients, our rate of being able to help out a hostile, volatile situation is so much, I consider that so much easier.
It is.
As hard as that situation is, I get it. It's probably very rough. But if someone came to me and says, "Hey, my wife and I, my husband and I, we have lots of arguments. There's lots of yelling," I'd be like, "Great, that's something that we can fix pretty easily."
Absolutely. And as a side note, actually a huge note, we very successfully also help those in apathetic situation as well. Mark and I are the IC unit for marriages, and we do take on cases. Okay, I shouldn't say cases. That's an awful word. We help marriages that no one else will help, right? Counselors won't help them unless both are committed. The other coaches, they won't help them unless both are committed. Mark and I, we know what to do to get you there, and we know how to get you to that inner peace of knowing that you gave your marriage every fighting chance possible. And we have successfully helped those even in an apathetic situation. So if you're there, don't give up hope, because there is always hope and there are always solutions. However, like Mark said, we almost throw a little party when you say we're all fighting and it's really tense and we're like, okay, yes. And that makes no sense probably, but we understand that when there is that fire, you can easily take those situations to then reduce the tension, because the care is still there. That burning ember of care is there. It's just that you've got these flames going up that are destroying your happiness and the peace in your marriage. But we can very readily have solutions to solve that.
Even further, it becomes really easy to start showing a contrast. Hey, we were having these explosive arguments. Now they're not having that. And I would say one of the biggest things that breaks the couple apart in the end is that lack of hope that something could be different. So if you can present a big contrast like that, you've got a goal.
Absolutely. I was just talking to one of our clients, and he was saying how he used to get so caught up in the emotion and the tension and the stress. And I can absolutely understand that and relate to that. When your marriage isn't going right, it seems to consume everything in your life. It's like that fire spreads to everything else. And it's really difficult to focus at work. And he was talking about how he couldn't even see through his own emotion. Like he couldn't see through his own anger. It was like a red light, like he said, like a red color, like blinding him to everything. But now that we have shown him exactly how to move through those things, he said the way he looks at those challenges, and they still happen, right? Because marriage is the continual ebb and flow of challenges, right? But that he sees those challenges now, he knows that they are not the end, they're not the stopping point, and they're not the loss. They are actually the opportunity to go further and the opportunity to grow. And that is exactly where you want to get yourself to. And Leah, who we interviewed just a couple of weeks ago, said the same thing. She said, now I see those challenges as opportunities. And it's amazing when you can shift that and be like, okay, my spouse and I were butting heads about this. This is an amazing opportunity for us to grow as a couple. And we can become even stronger now having gone through this with the right tools and the right mentality behind it. It's a really beautiful thing to see. So thank you, Mark. We so appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you're stuck in a kind of hostile, volatile situation, or you have the apathy, or you have the stonewalling, all of these different obstacles to reconnecting with your spouse, really encourage you to take that high level overview, determine what you really want in the situation, and then take action. If that leads you to Mark and I, you want to reach out, message us privately. We'd be happy to help you with your specific situation. Or you can, you're always welcome to look at the tools and the resources, the online courses, and the coaching programs that we offer so that you can then get where you want to be in your marriage and have that thriving marriage. One last thing, super exciting. On Tuesday next week, Mark and I will be doing a very special members only masterclass live for you guys. And so this is going to be our restoration equation, showing exactly how to take you from having your spouse pulling away from your marriage to the steps that you need to take to reconnect. So if you guys want to join that, then go ahead and leave the word thrive in the comments below. We'll make sure to get you all the information, and we're really looking forward to that. It'll be incredible value and really help you guys out a lot. So appreciate you guys, and thank you, Mark. We'll see you guys soon.
See you around.